Here's a long, engaging story based on your title request. Child with Tourette's, humiliated by jewelry employee, unaware Keanu Reeves was looking ahead. The cool air of the Los Angeles morning carried a gentle breeze through the bustling streets of Rodeo Drive. It was the kind of day where the sun shone just right, reflecting off the luxurious glass windows of high-end stores. Keanu Reeves, dressed in his usual understated fashion, black jeans, a worn leather jacket, and his signature long hair draped over his shoulders, walked at a leisurely pace, blending into the crowd. Keanu had no particular destination in mind. He was simply enjoying his morning, sipping on an espresso he had grabbed from a quiet little cafe a few blocks away. The world often felt too loud, too chaotic, but here, in the midst of strangers, he found a sense of calm. That was until he heard it. A voice, sharper than the usual hum of the city, cut through the air. "Sir, I think you should leave. We don't tolerate disruptions in our store." Keanu's brows furrowed. He turned his gaze toward the Cartier boutique a few steps ahead. Through the massive glass windows, Keanu could see a small boy standing near the counter, his hands clenched into fists. His mother stood beside him, visibly tense, her eyes pleading with the jewelry store employee who had just spoken. The boy, no older than 10, had a nervous tic. His shoulders jerked slightly, and a sudden involuntary grunt escaped his lips. The other customers in the store glanced at him, some with mild curiosity, others with the cold indifference of the wealthy. The boy's cheeks flushed red as he struggled to suppress the uncontrollable movements of his body. "I'm sorry, my son has Tourette's," the mother explained softly, placing a protective hand on the boy's shoulder. "He can't help it." The employee, a tall man in an impeccably tailored suit, sneered. "Ma'am, we serve high-profile clientele here. We have a reputation to uphold. If your son is going to be making disruptive noises, perhaps this isn't the right place for you." Keanu felt his jaw tighten. His grip on his coffee cup became iron-like, but he forced himself to stay calm. He had seen cruelty in many forms, but nothing boiled his blood more than arrogance aimed at the innocent. The little boy shifted uncomfortably, his tics worsening under stress. He stammered, I just wanted to see the watches. I love watches." The employee scoffed. "Maybe you should stick to plastic ones from a toy store." That was enough. Keanu stepped forward, pushing the glass door open with a deliberate slowness. The chime above the door rang softly, but his entrance carried the weight of a storm. All eyes turned to him as he strolled in, his face impassive, but his dark eyes burning with quiet fury. The employee, still smug in his perceived authority, barely spared him a glance before addressing him like any other customer. "Good morning, sir. How can I assist you?" Keanu didn't answer right away. He walked past the man directly to the little boy, crouching slightly to meet his eyes. "You like watches?" he asked, his voice warm, a stark contrast to the icy atmosphere in the room. The boy hesitated, as if unsure he was really being spoken to, then nodded. "Yeah, I love them. I read all about them online. I can name all the different types of movements and—" His words were interrupted by a sudden tick, a sharp vocal sound that made him flinch. Keanu didn't even blink. He just smiled. "That's awesome," he said. "You know I love watches too. You got a favorite brand?" The boy's eyes lit up. "Patek Philippe. But they're super expensive." Keanu chuckled. "Yeah, they are. But you know what? Watches aren't just about money. They're about craftsmanship, precision, and time, things that really matter." The employee cleared his throat impatiently. "Sir, if you're looking to make a purchase—" Keanu straightened, turning his full attention to the man. The warmth in his expression vanished, replaced by something colder, heavier. "Actually," Keanu said, his voice calm but unmistakably firm, "I am, but not from you." The employee faltered. Excuse me?" Keanu tilted his head slightly. "You see, I have a rule. I don't buy from people who judge others for things they can't control, especially kids." The silence in the store was suffocating. The other customers watched in stunned silence, whispering among themselves. Keanu turned to the mother. "I'm really sorry you had to deal with this." Then looking at the boy, he grinned. "How about we go to another store, one where they actually appreciate people who love watches?" The boy gasped. "Really?" Keanu winked. "Really?" The employee sputtered, realizing the gravity of his mistake. Mr. Reeves, I didn't mean—" Keanu raised a hand, silencing him effortlessly. "You meant exactly what you said. And that's the problem. Without another word, he led the boy and his mother out of the store. As they stepped back into the sunlight, Keanu pulled out his phone, making a quick call. "Hey, it's Keanu. Yeah, I need a favor. I need the best watch store in town, and I need them to treat a young watch enthusiast like a king." The boy looked up at him in awe. "Are you really taking me to a watch store?" Keanu nodded. "Not just any store, the best one. And today you're picking out something special." Tears welled in the mother's eyes as she mouthed a silent, "Thank you." As they walked away, the Cartier employee watched from the doorway, his face pale. He had just learned a brutal lesson. Sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one who stands up for those who need it most. And today, that person was Keanu Reeves. As they walked down Rodeo Drive, the boy still seemed to be in disbelief. His tics, though still present, had eased slightly as excitement replaced his nervousness. His mother wiped at her eyes, shaking her head in gratitude. "You really don't have to do this, Mr. Reeves," she said softly. "You've already done more than enough just by standing up for him." Keanu smiled. "Call me Keanu, and I'm just doing what any decent person should do. Besides," he glanced down at the boy, "I want to see if your taste in watches is as good as you say." The boy beamed. "It is." A few minutes later they arrived at an elegant boutique, one of those places where the staff greeted you like royalty regardless of who you were. Keanu had made sure of that with his phone call. As they entered, a distinguished older gentleman in a navy suit greeted them warmly. "Mr. Reeves, welcome. And who is our young watch connoisseur?" Keanu gestured to the boy. "This is my friend here. He's got an eye for watches, and today he's getting a real one." The boy's eyes went wide. "Wait, really?" Keanu nodded. "Pick one, any one you like." His mother gasped. "Keanu, we can't." He gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You can, and you will." For the next half hour the boy moved from display to display, his excitement growing with each watch he examined. He rattled off details, automatic movements, tourbillons, complications, his knowledge far beyond his years. The staff treated him like a VIP, listening intently and nodding in appreciation of his passion. Finally he stopped in front of a sleek, classic timepiece with a deep blue dial. He stared at it, mesmerized. "This one," he whispered. The boutique owner nodded. "An excellent choice, timeless, elegant, and built to last." Keanu grinned. "Just like you, kid." The boy swallowed hard. "But it's so expensive." Keanu crouched beside him again. "Listen, a watch is more than just a thing you wear. It reminds you of moments, of people, of time well spent. I want this watch to remind you of something important." The boy looked up at him. "What?" "That you matter, that you deserve to be anywhere you want to be, and that no one gets to make you feel small." Tears welled in the boy's eyes, and before he could stop himself he lunged forward and hugged Keanu tight. Keanu chuckled and hugged him back. "Thank you," the boy whispered. "Anytime," Keanu murmured. The mother, overwhelmed with emotion, placed a trembling hand on Keanu's arm. "You've given my son more than a watch today. You've given him confidence. You've given him kindness." Keanu simply smiled. "He deserves it." As they left the store, the boy kept looking down at his wrist in awe, watching the way the light caught the dial. Keanu walked with them a little longer before finally stopping at a quiet corner. "This is where I head off," he said, "but it was an honor meeting you both." The boy held up his wrist, proudly displaying his new watch. "I'll take good care of it, and one day I'll have my own watch company. I'll make the coolest watches ever." Keanu grinned. "I believe it, and when that day comes I'll be your first customer." With one last wave, Keanu turned and walked off into the city, disappearing into the crowd as he always did, quiet, humble, leaving behind only the warmth of a moment that would never be forgotten. And in that moment, a little boy with Tourette's, once humiliated by ignorance, stood taller than ever before. Because someone had seen him, not as a problem, not as an inconvenience, but as a person worthy of respect. A hero had walked into his life that day, and his name was Keanu Reeves. The boy couldn't stop staring at his wrist as he and his mother walked back to their car. The watch gleamed under the California sun, its ticking sound a quiet but powerful reminder of the moment that had just changed his life. His mother, still emotional, glanced at him and wiped a stray tear from her cheek. "I still can't believe that happened," she murmured. "Keanu Reeves just did that for you." The boy, still in awe, finally looked up. "Mom, I want to do something like that one day." She smiled, brushing his hair back. "You will, sweetheart. I know you will." Meanwhile, across town, Keanu strolled down the street, hands tucked into his pockets, his mind still on the boy. His anger from earlier had simmered down, replaced with a sense of peace. He didn't seek out moments like these, but when they happened, they reminded him why kindness, true, unshakable kindness, mattered more than anything. His phone buzzed. "Hey, Keanu, heard what you did at Cartier. That was badass." He chuckled, shaking his head. It didn't take long for stories to spread in Hollywood. He typed back a quick reply. "Wasn't about being badass, just about doing what's right." A few seconds later, another text came in. "Well, the store is getting roasted online. People are calling for a boycott." Keanu exhaled through his nose. He hadn't done any of this for attention, but he wasn't surprised. He hoped the employee learned something. Maybe next time he'd think twice before treating someone unfairly. But what mattered most wasn't what happened to Cartier. It was that a little boy, one who had been made to feel like he didn't belong, walked away knowing that he did. Keanu Reeves disappeared into the crowd once more, his mission, though unplanned, complete. And somewhere in Los Angeles, a boy with a brand new watch and a renewed sense of confidence knew that no matter what anyone said about him, he was worth every second of time. And that was priceless. 1 year later. The sun was setting over Los Angeles, casting a golden glow across the skyline. In a quiet little cafe, Keanu Reeves sat at a corner table, sipping an espresso and reading a book. It was one of the rare moments he could just exist, away from cameras and expectations. Then the cafe door chimed, and a familiar voice rang out. "Mom, look, they have the vintage clocks I told you about." Keanu looked up, setting his cup down. A wide smile spread across his face as he recognized the boy from Cartier. But he looked different now, more confident, his posture straighter, his eyes brighter, and on his wrist, the very same watch Keanu had bought him that day. The boy turned, caught sight of Keanu, and froze. His eyes widened. "Mom, it's him." His mother gasped, placing a hand over her mouth in surprise. Keanu chuckled and gave them a small wave. The boy hesitated for only a second before running over. "Keanu," he blurted out, almost forgetting to breathe. I've been wanting to find you. I've got something to show you." Keanu raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Yeah? What is it?" The boy eagerly unzipped his backpack and pulled out a small, handmade wooden box. He placed it on the table and carefully opened the lid. Inside was a watch, one that clearly wasn't from any luxury brand, but rather something crafted with love and effort. The band was stitched leather, the face hand engraved, and though it wasn't perfect, it had charm. "I made it myself," the boy said proudly. "I've been learning watchmaking. After you bought me that watch, I started studying everything, movements, gears, even designing my own. And this is my first real one." Keanu carefully picked up the watch, turning it over in his hands. He examined the craftsmanship, the little details and the tiny imperfections that made it special. "This is incredible," he said, his voice full of genuine admiration. "You really made this yourself?" The boy nodded excitedly. "Yeah, and one day I'm gonna start my own watch company, just like I told you." Keanu smiled. "You're already on your way." The boy hesitated for a second, then took a deep breath. "I actually made it for you as a thank you." Keanu looked at him, surprised. "For me?" The boy nodded, his expression serious. "You gave me something that day, and it wasn't just a watch. You made me feel like I belonged, like I mattered, and I wanted to give something back." Keanu stared at the boy for a long moment, then slowly unstrapped the Rolex he was wearing and set it on the table. Carefully, he fastened the handmade watch onto his wrist, admiring how it fit. "It's perfect," he said, "and I'll wear it with pride." The boy beamed, and his mother wiped a tear from her eye. Keanu leaned forward. "And when your company takes off, promise me one thing." "What?" "That I'll be the first person to buy one of your watches." The boy grinned, nodding eagerly. "Deal?" Keanu extended his fist, and the boy bumped it without hesitation. As they shared that moment, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the city in warm hues of orange and purple. And just like that, time moved forward, 1 second at a time, on the wrist of a boy who now knew without a doubt that he was destined for greatness.